Hi, I'm Annie with Miserable Cow Coaching. Contact information is in the description. Today I want to talk about pain, both physical and emotional. I have some thoughts from observing my own pain and the pain of others. I've been lucky and I haven't experienced much extreme pain in my life. I've never even given birth, which I hear can be really intense. But pain is relative. The worst pain that you have ever experienced is your worst pain. And the worst pain that I've ever experienced is my worst pain. I have a lot of nerve pain, headaches. Once I had an abscessed tooth, sports injuries, and most recently, pretty disruptive back pain. So here's my strategy for dealing with pain. I find that it's helpful to open up, relax, and allow the pain to pass through. When I relax and allow the pain, it tends to dissipate. So if I have pain that's intense enough, I might take a minute to lay down and focus on this practice of opening up and allowing the pain to pass through me. I also step outside of myself into the observer position and observe the pain. It is what it is. I neither resist it or become attached to it. I just observe it and feel the sensation and listen to it and allow it to communicate with me. When I was younger, I used to resist pain. On a physical level, this means tensing up the muscles around the pain, which ultimately leads to more pain. Often when we think about pain, what we're really remembering is resistance to pain or attachment to pain. The pain itself passes, just like the weather. It's a transient thing. It's just a sensation. It's our resisting it and labeling it and becoming attached to it that allows it to become entrenched and habitual and no longer transient. At that point, it can kind of play on a loop, sort of like a feedback loop from an amp when the microphone or the guitar is too close to the amp. It goes into the amp and increases and feeds back to the mic and increases and then feeds back to the amp and it becomes amplified. I also remember in the past times when I would sort of compulsively push into the pain to like check it, stand on that leg again and see, does the hip still hurt? Yes, it still hurts. Testing it to see if the pain is still there. And in a way, it's sort of a compulsive fixation on the pain. And this can lead to a sort of attachment. The pain becomes entrenched because I was testing it again and again and labeling it pain. Yes, there it is. This is pain. I am in pain. And then pain became sort of a part of my identity. And I've noticed the same thing with emotional pain. My tendency now is to open up to emotional pain when it arises, to allow it to fully express itself and communicate whatever it is it's trying to communicate. Pain is a message. I do this without allowing the pain to become part of my identity. The pain is just a phenomenon that is happening right now, just like the weather. It's rainy outside. It's rainy right now. The rain will pass and then it will no longer be rainy. It's the same thing with pain. So I'm not latching on to it. This is a practice of maintaining consciousness and staying in that observer position when pain is present. And it's possible to have moments of really intense pain where you do momentarily lose awareness. That happens to anyone. But it's a practice because you bring yourself back and you remember to open up and allow it because it's so much more painful to resist it. And if it becomes part of your identity and you're attached to it, then it's prolonged. It becomes chronic. A lot of times when we talk about pain, it's like we're replaying the memory of pain. The actual signal is one thing, but we're sort of latching onto it and replaying it. And this entrenches that neural pathway signal deeper and deeper. That connection of the sensation of pain in our brain pathways gets deeper and deeper and more established so that it's easier to get to that pain again. I see the same thing with emotional pain. When it arises, I prefer to just feel it directly in the moment. I don't want to resist it and put it off until later. I just want to feel the full expression of it in the moment if I can. Understandable if you're at work and you can't do that. But if I'm just here around my house vacuuming, doing chores, I'm not going to stop vacuuming. The emotion arises and I just feel it completely while I'm vacuuming. I feel it in the moment. I cry every day. Every day I cry because there's something that's too beautiful or something that's really tragic that I hear on the radio. There's a lot of tragic stuff on the radio right now that elicits this emotional pain. And so I allow the emotion to express itself and then just move on with my day. I don't latch onto it. I don't tell myself a story about it like, oh, the world is going to hell in a handbasket. This is terrible. The world is ending. Those stories are a kind of latching on and attaching to the emotion. If you just feel it and express it and listen to what it is trying to communicate and then move on, then it doesn't bother you anymore. And you can take action. If the communication of that pain informs you and inspires action, then absolutely you can take practical actions to mitigate whatever it was that caused the pain, or to change your circumstances and make the world better, or change your beliefs, your assumptions about the world. You know, maybe you have pain because you have a belief that isn't useful to you. So the pain can tell you that. You have the emotional pain, and then maybe a story arises and you realize, oh, I have this emotional pain because I believe X, Y, Z. Do I really want to believe that anymore? So it's just about bringing focus, concentration, and awareness to the moment of the emotion. Some people resist emotional pain, and then of course it comes back. It cannot be denied. You can see a lot of people attached to their emotional pain. It's become so much a part of their identity. I'm sure you know these people in your life. You can certainly see people doing this on social media. People who are so attached to their identity as a sad person, a tragic person, a lonely person, and they're just really stuck. They believe that story so much that they're perpetuating that pain. They're replaying it. And that's not a judgment in any way, because this is a human tendency. We all do this, but we can also all learn to experience pain more gracefully and not become attached to it and not resist it. It's something that anybody can learn. And if you know someone who's really stuck in their pain, really attached to it, you want to introduce this concept to them very carefully. Tread very carefully, because this pisses people off. When you're really stuck and attached to your pain, your dysfunction, sometimes when someone tries to help you out of that, you're so attached that the help feels like gaslighting. It feels like blaming the victim. And that's not what I'm suggesting at all. So if you introduce this idea to somebody, you have to do it with a heavy dose of acknowledging and validating, because they feel how they feel. They believe what they believe. They're attached to those habitual feelings and habitual thoughts. Mood is a habit. That's a hard one for people to hear, especially if they have a really external locus of control. No, I'm not unhappy because it's a habit. I'm unhappy because Sally looked at me funny, or the government's out to get me, or the economy is trash, or, you know, a million outer blocks. There are outer circumstances that are very, very real. But the way that you approach those and work around them creatively is your decision. And your mood is your decision as well. Not to say that you won't have moments when emotion arises, but you just feel them at that time and then move on and make choices. You don't allow that emotion or mood to become habitual. So the closed, unconscious part of the self can be extremely attached to its own pain and dysfunction. It doesn't want to be found out. So you have to be really careful introducing this idea or anything like this to anybody, because it pisses people off, really. I had a therapist who introduced this idea to me when I was in my early 20s, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. It wasn't an easy thing to hear, because my locus of control was very external at that time in my life. But that therapist planted a seed in sharing that concept with me. And I contemplated it for many years. I never forgot what he said. And gradually, I came to understand that it's true, that I have a lot of control over my relationship with pain. And I'm really grateful for the physical pain that I've had. Like I said, it hasn't been really intense. I know people have dealt with horrific pain, but the moments of intense pain that I have felt were sort of an opportunity to cultivate this practice of relaxing and opening up to the pain and just saying yes to it. If there's pain and you say no to it, that's pushing on the pain and it's going to push back. But if you just say, okay, come in, it comes in and it dissipates. I mean, you can practice this. If you have, a headache or a sports injury or, tooth pain, or I've heard women talking about this in childbirth. That is very intense pain. There are techniques that you can use to just sort of open up and allow it to pass through. You allow the body to do what it knows how to do, but you don't resist the pain or judge it. And I know that maybe sounds ridiculous to hear from somebody who has never given birth. I've just read a lot of these accounts about different, self-hypnosis techniques that birthing mothers use, or just different approaches to pain. And the common thread that I hear is that it's this opening up and allowing. And some pain is very extreme, and it might not be possible to employ these techniques. But I think there are opportunities of pain that will come up for me and for everyone else where it is possible to cultivate this practice, and I think you can learn a lot from it. I'm grateful for the physical pain that I've had, because cultivating this practice allowed me to translate that practice to emotional pain. A question came up in a Facebook thread the other day: which is more difficult for you to handle, physical pain or emotional pain? And I would say by far emotional pain is harder for me to handle traditionally. It has been when I was younger. Physical pain is nobody's favorite thing. Nobody wants to be in physical pain. For me, the emotional pain was much more challenging. And by practicing this technique with physical pain, I was able to translate that to emotional pain and just really learn a lot from the practice. So I've just been thinking about that lately, because I had significant pain and I was employing this technique, and also just noticing how I deal with emotional pain and noticing that there's a similarity. So those are my thoughts on pain.